Shana Tova. This past summer, I was supposed to spend much of July learning Torah at the Hartman Institute in Israel. Then, the 12-day war with Iran happened, and like so many other plans, mine were swept away. As my daughters like to say, womp womp. The consolation prize was 3 days in New York at the end of August, taking classes at the Upper West Side. Now, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't exactly the same as wandering the streets of Jerusalem, but I did get to hear some wonderful teachers, reconnect with Hartman fellows, and spend quality time with a few of my Argentine buddies. Now, in one of the classes, the teacher dropped a striking line. He said the following: Jewish congregations should become like Shiva homes minus the death, which is not your average high holiday soundbite, I guess. I remember telling my colleagues at the time that would be quite an opener for a sermon. So here I am, quoting these words and wondering if they feel as intriguing to you as they did to me. Yehuda Kurtzer, that's the teacher's name, was using the metaphor to reclaim the idea that congregations should be communities of care and concern. Think about it. When you walk into a Shiva home or house, the doors are wide open, people gather to hold each other close, there is a time for prayer, there is a time for Torah, and of course, there is plenty of good food to be shared among family and friends. A Shiva house is also the place where the community gathers to tell stories and to practice together the sacred art of remembering. As people evoke anecdotes associated with their loved ones, family and friends reinforce the values that shape who they are and who they want to be. A Shiva house, then, calls for a certain openness to vulnerability. We allow ourselves to share our pain because we know that we are surrounded by people who care about us and will hold us tight as we mourn our loss. This image of a Shiva house as a tent open to the four corners of the world in order to welcome guests from near and far actually appears in a midrash about Job. Job, the biblical figure who tragically loses everything, spends most of the book that bears his name receiving friends who come to offer him words of consolation. But the midrash, the rabbis, they go further. According to the rabbis, Job's house was open not only so that he could be comforted, but also so that he could feed the poor. In doing so, Job built a remarkable system of mutual responsibility, embodying what a true community of care should look like. People sustained him even as he sustained others. That was, by the way, the model that was initiated by Abraham and Sarah. However, keeping a welcoming home to receive others is not the only available answer when we are at the peak of our sorrow. Indeed, when faced with an overwhelming flood of grief, some people may decide that what they need is not an open tent, but an enclosed ark. The question then is, what kind of community are we creating when we think in terms of arcs? An ark is designed to withstand inclement weather. It is a sealed container, so it is difficult for water to get in. At the same time, and for the same reason, it's not exactly an inviting space. People can come and go as they please. It provides safety for those sheltering under its roof, though after spending some time with elephants, rhinos, skunks, and the rest of the animal kingdom, I'm not sure most of us would choose to live happily ever after amid that full array of smells. We live in troubled times, so it's not surprise that many of us want our Jewish institutions to be transformed, not into arks, but actually into fortresses. And there is no blame in that. We are afraid. We are deeply vulnerable and unwilling to take any unnecessary risks. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, and the fact that almost anyone in this country can get their hands on a weapon only makes things harder. Under these conditions, we are willing to endure the most unpleasant of sins, as long as it guarantees a safer environment for us, our children, and our grandchildren as well. In a sense, the conversation about arks and tents is also related to the underlying values and the traits of the biblical characters that they evoke. Noah on the one hand, and Abram on the other. Noah is without a doubt the embodiment of self-preservation. Aware of the imminent catastrophe, he devoted a lot of time and effort to building a structure that would keep him and his family safe. Their physical survival was his top priority, and no resources were spared in the construction of the ark. And truth be told, it worked. Noah and his family were the only survivors of that flood. Yet, the very Noah who placed self-preservation above all else was the one who, after witnessing the devastation left behind, could not bear the weight of survival. Confronted with the horror of being the last man standing, he faltered, drowning his pain in wine and becoming tragically undone. Now, Abram, by contrast, is the personification of justice. While Noah remained silent and didn't help those around him even when he knew that the flood was coming, Abram boldly confronted God in an attempt to save the innocent people of Sodom and Gomorrah. He could not accept a world where God failed to distinguish between sinners and saints, and demanded that the judge of all earth act justly. And yet, the same Abram who fought so fiercely for strangers said absolutely nothing when, as we read in the Torah just a few minutes ago, God commanded him to sacrifice his son, as if his devotion to universal justice left him unable to plead for the life of his own blood. It seems that each character on their own, or to be more precise, each of these values, self-preservation on one end and justice on the other, when pursued in isolation, can take us down a very dangerous path. If we care only for our own survival and ignore the needs of others, that's a problem. But if we pursue universal justice while forgetting the rights of our own people to exist, that too becomes a recipe for disaster. Perhaps, instead of choosing between an ark and a tent, or between Noah and Abraham, what Judaism is asking us to do is to integrate and balance the two of them. So we must actively invest in creating communal spaces that will protect us from harm, even as we remain a welcoming place for all who walk through our doors. We have to be ready to face the many threats that are surrounding us, and at the same time, we have to continue to promote a congregation of care and concern, where people show up for each other in times of happiness and in times of pain. We must unapologetically advocate for our own self-preservation while also raising our voices when injustice afflicts other groups here in Nashville and way beyond. We must be proudly Jewish without giving up our role as committed citizens of the world. We must support our brothers and sisters in Israel. They certainly need our support, while also finding the courage to empathize with Palestinians who are suffering from hunger, desolation, and sorrow. It's not one or the other. It's both. We need a tent and we need an ark. We need to be the grandchildren of Noah, and we need to be the children of Abraham and Sarah. So as we stand together on Rosh Hashanah, the day when we reckon with our deeds and renew our commitments, we are reminded that the call of Judaism is never simple. The blending of values, safety and openness, self-preservation and moral integrity, compassion and responsibility has always been at the heart of our people. And in a world that constantly is pressuring us to choose between two seemingly opposing truths, the holy work of this season is to live with them both. The ark and the tent, Noah and Abraham, caution and empathy, mercy and justice are all part of our Jewish inheritance. So with that in mind, may God inspire us this year to carry them both, creating then a community that shelters, that embraces, and that inspires all of us to live lives of meaning, of purpose, and of belonging. Shana Tova.